Hi sewing friends, welcome to my sewing room. My name's Beth. If you're new, welcome. This beautiful block called Providence is our block for today. Here it is all together, and to make the block I'm using 3 sets of squares. I need some 3.5-inch squares. I have 2 of the red and white each, and I need 4 each of these 3-inch squares, red and white. And then I need some 2.5-inch squares. I'll list below the amount of squares that you will need, and I'm going to begin by making the hourglass block using the larger 3.5-inch squares. These larger squares do not need to be exactly 3.5 inches. I'll be doing some cutting and sewing, and when I'm all done, that's when I will trim it to the correct size. I kind of like to begin with squares that are a little bit bigger than 3.5. 3.5 works, but I always kind of worry that I might cut it a little too close after putting in the seams and cutting. To make the hourglass block with these 2 sets of squares, I'll get 4 hourglass blocks. I put a pencil line through the center diagonally, and I'll put a seam on both sides of that pencil line. After pressing all of these half square triangles, I'm going to take 2 half square triangles and put them right sides together with the red and the white facing each other, sort of going opposite directions. And I'm trying to make sure that that seam is nestled really well together. And now I'll be drawing another pencil line. And again, I will sew on both sides of this pencil line. Here are my 4 hourglass blocks, and I'm now going to trim them to 2.5 inches. And I had a lot of excess fabric, so I didn't need to worry too much about making them too small. I did cut my squares, like I said, 3.5 inches and maybe just a smidge larger. So I think 3.5 inches would have been just fine. And I'm trying to line up the line on my little ruler here, the diagonal line. I'm trying to line that up on the seam and get that 2.5-inch mark in the corner and cut away the excess so that I will have the little hourglass block that I need. Now that I have my hourglass blocks made, I need 8 half square triangles for this block called Providence. And now I'll use my 3-inch squares, putting right sides together again. I'll draw that pencil line corner to corner. I'll put a seam on both sides of the pencil line. I'll cut them all along that pencil line and then press. And again, I'm going to trim my half square triangles to 2.5 inches. And when I'm done with these half square triangles, I will have all the elements that I need for my quilt block. To lay out this quilt block called Providence, I'm going to begin with the white square and put my hourglass blocks around that center square. All of the little pieces in this block are 2.5 inches. So I have my red squares on the outside. Now I'll use my half square triangles and put those in the corners, sort of facing each other. And then all I'll have to do is fill in the outside corners with a white square. Now my quilt block is all laid out next to my sewing machine, and I can begin sewing all of those little pieces together. I try my best to press towards the darker fabric, especially when using white like this. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes the seam does need to sit behind that white fabric, but as much as possible, I try to press towards the darker fabric. This beautiful block called Providence measures 10.5 inches at this point. It would look wonderful with some sashing, just a 2-color quilt, but I know that it would look really pretty using a variety of fabrics. I always like making scrappy quilts, so I may just have to try this with some scraps. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.